So now I will introduce, in the middle of the theater, Mr. Brian Fountain.
Hello. Hi. So my name is Brian. This will be a little bit slightly different. We will use keynote and we will look at things on the screen, but it'll be a little bit more interactive than maybe what you would imagine. So the first interactive portion of this workshop is that we're actually going to fill all seats in this front section first. So everybody, if you're standing here, come in and fill these in here. We'll move everybody down. That way we can accommodate our stragglers. This is the first key step in getting all of your audience on the same page. So right now we have these big holes here in the front of the auditorium, which all these people back here are sitting in judgment. So if you can, everybody shift forward or shift inward towards the center of the aisles. It's not a test. There's nothing extremely sort of tricky. I'm not going to point anybody out, but if you see like blank spaces right here, go ahead and shift down towards the center so we have the edges open. Great. Cool. Keep going. Keep going. We only have an hour. We only have an hour. The clock is ticking. This is your first objective. It only gets more exciting from here on out. So many seats still left up here. So many seats. I can calculate this right now and tell you that this experience is going to be 15 to 25% less compelling with these seats empty right up here. So you control your own fate in your own hands right now. You could have a much more exciting life if somebody would take one for the team and fill these front seats right here. Who will answer the call? No one! No one. I know names of people in this theater. I can start shaming you. I can call you out individually. I've been drinking with some of you. I know your weaknesses. I know the secrets that you tell when you think no one's listening. Don't make me bring those out here in this room. Great. Moving forward. I think you still think that this is a game. All right, back people. There are 15 seats up here near the front. Let's get this going. Let's get them. All right, let's give these back people a round of applause. Other back people, what's wrong? What's going on in your head? You're thinking like, oh, he doesn't mean me. Or, you know what, this might be boring, so I want to sit towards the back and sleep out. Or let me guess, I got a sick kid. Don't use the sick kid excuse. I may need to leave any moment. That is the lamest one that there is. All right, my name is Brian Fountain. Go ahead and move forward. Let's get going. This is Transmedia on $8 a day. So just a quick poll of who we're dealing with here. Who here would say they've actually produced something that they would consider a transmedia experience? They've sort of built or designed something that they feel meets that category. All right, so great. Very small number. So how many people who've never done anything like that but would say, I'm kind of interested in possibly doing that one day in the future or building something that's multi-platform, by show of hands? Great, that's a really terrific number. That's about 30 or 40% of us. And then how many people are just curious, I don't think I'll do this, but I'm very interested to see like what's going on in this space and what people are using to tell stories. How many people would fit that description? Terrific. All right, so a very large portion of us here in the audience have not produced anything and are curious about doing that in the future, and that's great. You're in the right place. We're going to shape a lot of what I'm talking about today around that material, that area. All right, so just so you know, people in the back, if stragglers come in, it is your responsibility to force those people to come down to the front, all right? So now that is your duty. If you see people standing, you have to host them and actually make sure that they find a seat. If I see somebody walk in and be like, oh, I don't know if there's any seats, and turn around and leave, that's you. That is your bad up there. All right, so let's get going. My name is Brian Fountain. Just tell you a little bit about me. You don't really have to know that I'm good at anything because really all I'm doing is just educating you about like what's out there already. But just in case that's sort of the chip you have on your shoulder about whether you want people to tell you things about the world or not, here's a little bit about me. So I am a writer. I am a game designer. I am currently teaching narrative design at the New York Film Academy's new game design program. I am a The recent games that I've designed are, I co-founded a company called Prototype 161 that does outdoor gaming festivals. It's twice recognized by Indiecade for independent game design, and multiple other games. I'm a composer. I recently co-wrote a feature film called Freak Dance, which is the most recent film produced by the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, available on DVD. And I'm a developer. I design in Ruby, and I am also a front-end designer. And I'm a photographer mostly with the organization Improv Everywhere. My work has been seen by over 1 million people. And I am a transmedia producer, a lot of times for my own independent art, but also for marketing and advertising agencies. So that's that. Free stuff, that's kind of what we're really talking about here for the most part. Chances are, if you are going to start this thing for the first time, and it is the very first time that you've done it, no one is going to give you money to do it. And so you will be strapped for cash for most of that experience and trying to figure out, how can I tell a story or get people's attention or do something interesting with no money, right? You see things like these multi-million-dollar campaigns that support movies like Why So Serious and what have you, and things like this alternate reality game experiences, and you hear words like that, and you see movies that support films where people are jumping out of airplanes and animals are exploding, and you're like, I don't have the budgets for any of all that. I just want to try to tell a story and dip my toe in this. Well, we're going to go through a lot of the different technologies that you can use absolutely free on somebody else's dime to tell your story. Some of them you'll already know, but I'm going to zip through a lot of these really quickly, and actually I'm going to leave a lot of room for question and answers after this session, so we can go back and demo or talk or answer any additional questions about anything that you want. First off, the story is king, so you kind of know the story that you want to tell, but a lot of times, if you're going to be confined by the technology that you can tell it on, it's important to understand its limitations and what you can do with it. So, for example, Instagram. Who here is on Instagram or has an Instagram account? Right, so that's about half of us. So most of us know what it is. And perhaps we look at it as a way to share photos with our friends. But you'll see this trend here in a lot of what I'm talking about today. We can always co-opt platforms to tell stories on them. So Instagram, for example, if I wanted to tell my epic transmedia project story, Zombie Poet Society, due out 2016, I might look at something like Instagram and say, okay, how could I tell a story on this? So I would say, okay, I have this cute picture of my niece eating beets after dinner. I could put that into Instagram, and boom, I have a zombie outbreak for children. And now we're sort of in a storytelling mode. We're sort of transforming what would just be a normal picture, and then we've got not only filters to sort of change the content that we have with very little, and I did not pay her anything to get this photo. This was absolutely free. I signed up, got a free account. And now we've sort of got a whole rich platform, and I can tag it. I can leave descriptions underneath this image. People can follow me and discover me immediately. So if somebody on Instagram were searching for the tag zombie or cute baby, they would find this photo as I've tagged it, and then they might discover sort of a way into my story. So that's just one quick example. Pinterest. So most all of you know about Pinterest. We use this as a practical tool to collect things and to share them with our friends. So we can, anywhere where we can share photos, videos, and text is a place where we can tell a story. So, and somebody's already sort of been here and told this story, but the deal is this is free. You can go here tonight, you can start with your laptop now, and you can start telling a story on Pinterest or Instagram, and nobody can stop you. And you can tell that story to as many people that can discover it and just find it, and you are ready to go. So this is a little bit what Pinterest looks like, just in case you haven't used it. It's a way of collecting images and descriptions. You can see them there at the bottom. Then Twitter. This has already been done quite a few times, but just in case it's not on your radar, Twitter, just because you use it for telling your story or sharing what's going on with you and your friends, you can create characters on it by just getting little quick stock photos or taking photos of your friends or doing illustrations to help people realize, okay, this is not a real person, this is a character that I've designed. And then you can start telling your story in a real-time sense and schedule it with different characters and have those characters interact with each other absolutely free. It just costs you whatever your time is to get this thing up and running. So here's an example of there's creators who took Twitter and the mythos of Cthulhu, which is H.P. Lovecraft, and made Happy Cthulhuween, or Cthulhuween, however you want to say that. And what they did was they had anybody who wanted to create an account in this world and tag it with the hashtag Cthulhuween, and they basically wrote a live narrative, and if you wanted to, you could follow it and experience what it was like to have this spirit of Cthulhu invade Halloween. Now, the only drawback to deploying your story on platforms like Twitter is it's temporal, right? So no one can go back and experience it in a very real-time way anymore. And if you search for this hashtag, this experience was more than a year ago now, you won't find any tweets on it. So that's a strength or a weakness depending on however you see that that tool set. So if you want something that's going to live forever, this might not be the best platform for you. Cinemagram is a new technology. Who here knows about Cinemagram? Great. Great. So a lot of you don't. So just to give you an example of what it is, it's a little bit like Instagram, except it uses a technology which are just called animated GIFs. And you can think of them as really tiny movies that last maybe around 2 or 3 seconds. This is one that I made. And that's how it works. And so that is a still photo with a little bit of motion in it. I took this at some place in Brooklyn where they decided it would be interesting to have sheep in a pen, and I think they were right. I was like, that's interesting. This is in DeKalb Market. But, so you can use this to tell your epic zombie sheep story, or, whatever your story looks like. Here are a couple more that people on the site have created. That's just a real simple example. And here is a dog licking a bunny. So, once again, people dancing and a dog licking a bunny. So you can use that to tell your story, especially if you have a compelling, epic journey about one dog who meets a bunny and must cross the United States to reunite with their owner. Video. I won't go into this in too much detail because most of you are familiar with YouTube and Vimeo. There is also a content service that's open source, and then there's also a pay-for model called Kaltura that you can check out. And by the way, I'm going through all these very quickly, but I will share a link and I will tweet out a link to where you may find this presentation on SlideShare. So if you're technical savvy enough to track me after this event, you will be able to get all this information in this slide. So don't feel like you have to write absolutely everything down. But maybe you don't know about the way people are using YouTube. So I'm going to do one quick demo. Oh, let's see here. This is behind the magic. All right, so this is a real simple concept. And I'll turn the sound off here. So this is, obviously somebody in Google put this together. This is a shell game, so watch. Wait for it. And where is it? I hear left. And it clips to a new video. Boom. So obviously, YouTube was not initially designed to tell interactive video stories, but with annotations that can link to other YouTube videos, you can essentially create a choose-your-own-adventure story on the fly in the comfort of your own home. So you could do that with a webcam. You could record stories and make interactive branching fictions and let people choose the directions that they go, and you are automatically telling your story. And just so you know, so far we have deployed to over a half a dozen platforms, and we have spent $0. So this is absolutely we can already tell a story on an epic scale across multiple platforms, all for free. And the only thing that's cost us is our time as storytellers. All right, so let's keep going. We got a lot more to talk about. Back to Keynote, and we're in. All right, so blogs. I won't go into blogs too much because you're all mostly probably familiar with the concept of a blog. But just to give you an example of, if you're not too into what blogs like WordPress and Tumblr have to offer, and of course social networks like Facebook, then just give you a sense of it. With WordPress, let's just look at that for example. You can get a WordPress site, and for about $10 or $12, maybe as much as $15, buy a professionally made WordPress theme, download it, upload it to your WordPress installation and some other additional plugins like e-commerce and message boards and things like that. Be up and running in a very small amount of time and have a very professional looking website. I'm going to give you one quick example. So I'm a game designer. I recently debuted a game called Zone at the Come Out and Play Festival. And like most people that deploy and design things, I saved the marketing for the very, very last moment. I basically spent all my time building the game, and then I realized, oh, I need to tell someone about this game. So I didn't have a lot of time to put together my website, so I created a WordPress blog, and I'll just show you what it looks like here. So this is Zone. I don't know if the sound comes through this or not. We'll see. If not, I'll do this. So I downloaded this in about 10 minutes and deployed it in about a half hour to 45 minutes and then worked on the copy for another hour or so. I stole that video from Vimeo, and I did not produce that video, but it's you can scroll down and you can click through to his link and roll over it. And I had this up and running in about, a little less than 2 hours. Here's the rules. It's a real simple idea for the game, and contact page and about, and that's it. That cost me, I think I paid $10 for that theme and downloaded it and had it up and running. So that is a very affordable solution, and if I didn't tell you I stole that video, you would think, wow, that guy probably spent a lot of money and a lot of time putting that together. But that's something that you can have up and running very quickly. Moving on. All right, so miscellaneous things. Things like SlideShare is a way to share PowerPoint presentations in a very simple way. Scribed.com is a community site for uploading PDFs. So most people use this very much for business or educational purposes, but once you're putting a picture deck up in the sky or a PDF up in the sky, these also become storytelling platforms, especially in a particular style of storytelling called alternate reality gaming. Who here is familiar with that phrase, alternate reality gaming? All right, great. So that's about half of us. For those who you don't know, alternate reality gaming is a subset of transmedia storytelling. The premise usually is that it's in real time, that it is integrated into the real world in a way that's typically subtle. So I might not necessarily say, hey, welcome to SlideShare, my deck on SlideShare. If you're playing Zombie Poets Apocalypse Experience, you're at the right place. It might just be living up online for random people to discover, and that particular style is still used quite a bit, but is very popular for just embedding stuff in known sites. So whatever if you're just a writer, you can put a PDF up there and co-opt that. So I also just want to mention GoWatchIt.com. You can't really use it for transmedia experiences, but my friend built that site and said he would buy me lunch if I would tell you about it, and it's a way to find out when things are available online and where to see them, like movies and TV shows. So I just got free lunch. All right, so Social Samba. This is a very new platform that's out that simulates interactive Facebook experiences online. People can sign up for it and use it very easily, and it's very intuitive to use. They just won an Emmy for part of their interactive campaign along with the USA Network. And it's easy to describe as like scripted social networking. Definitely check that out. And right now it's absolutely free, and you can use it. All right, so Movable Feast is something that I just showed up on my radar a few months ago, but it's a very new, it's not quite actually released platform, but it might be interesting to people here in the audience because the developers are actually here in New York and they're very accessible, and they have future plans to allow people to create multimedia walking tours here in the real world and actually monetize them in the future, though I don't think they're monetizing them just yet. So that might be something to put on your radar. I don't think they're quite like absolutely up and running, but you can get the app. You can start downloading experiences. They don't have their doors completely open wide though to every developer, but you can today create your own experiences on the platform and get them in there. And then anybody can download the app and use that experience. And James Carter, who will be speaking at another event here, used this for his most recent campaign for New York Hearts. All right, live events. Live events can be as free as you can make them, right? So you can find community facilities, parks, city streets to play it. These guys are playing a game called Pac Manhattan, which is an outdoor game that was designed at NYU and is part of Come Out and Play Festival around like 2006, 2007. And that's basically as free as you want to make it. So, for example, if we want to get like really lo-fi, we can get some sidewalk chalk and we can start, creating a story anywhere around us. This is more or less about using your imagination. If ever you're thinking, I don't know how to tell my story with very little money, you just need to think about, well, yes, there are parts of the story that will maybe cost money to tell, but I can save that. What can I tell now for very affordably and cheaply and freely? And maybe that means you can't tell it to as a large audience, right? Maybe you could tell your story right here on this city block, and that means in New York that only maybe a couple hundred people experience it a week or so. But you're starting to tell it, and you're not confined to waiting on anybody. So, there's very cheap and affordable ways that you can grab people's attention and sort of pull them in to your story. So cheap stuff. So this stuff is not free, but it's pretty cheap. So blogs, WordPress, web hosting. So you can get a domain for about $10 to $15 a year if you don't know this. Web hosting, is you can get that as affordably as $7 to $15 a month, somewhere in that neighborhood. You probably don't want to pay too much less than that for web hosting because then it might not quite be as dependable or offer you the service that you want. But that's a good price range for the things that we're doing. And we can use things like Drupal, which are for community management, message boards, PHP, BB. These are all open source and free tools that you can use to create message boards or community sites that have. Drupal is a very large content management system with tons of modules that allow you to do things like schedule events or form groups and message to those groups and allow them to follow each other and write things on their wall. All of these are relatively affordable and free, and depending on how much time you have to immerse yourself in that technology, you can learn it very quickly. So SMS and voice is another way to tell your story. This is not free, and it's pretty tough to make it free, but this is the way that you can do it. Is like there are technologies called Twilio, which you can send texts and receive texts for about 1% per minute. 1 cent per minute of voice and 1 cent per text. And Textmarks has a different model, which is text only, but allows you to send as many texts as you want for 20 cents per user. So if you're sending large amounts of text to the same people, that's an interesting alternative. These, and here's some other alternatives as well. The problem with these is you do have to interact with the services APIs, and APIs are an automated system that you need your computer server to talk to theirs to send these messages. So we're starting to get into a more technical aspect. So then this becomes an issue of, is this something that you're comfortable with learning, or is it somebody you're comfortable partnering with to get these things done? But I've designed multiple experiences using these services, and they're very reliable. And especially if you're deploying to something like a feature phone, you are getting in contact with a large amount of people. Almost all of us have a feature phone capable of receiving and sending text messages and voice. Postcards are always still very affordable. They're not free, but you can get a lot of postcards for a very small amount of money. Books on demand. So you can design a book, make it beautiful, distribute it freely digitally, and if somebody wants to, they can print a more high quality version of it on demand. So you can have degrading experiences for the story that you want to tell. So on-demand services are like Amazon.com and Lulu, electronic only distribution services like Wattpad, posters, and some of these like Wattpad have very large communities. So now some of them are more focused towards preteen and certain audiences, but depending on the type of story that you want to tell, that might be the absolute best place that you could do it. And then things like posters or apparel on demand at Cafe Press and Zazzle. Obviously, with a lot of these, you always want to caution. The one word of warning is you need to order a sample first. So there are certain things that you can get on Cafe Press that are very good quality, and there are certain things that you can get on Cafe Press that are poor quality. So you always want to test these things and make sure that it's exactly what you're looking for. Some of them are templates, and then, so for example, things like Wattpad or Amazon, you would just upload a PDF, for example, to them. And things like Cafe Press, so if you had a logo that you created for an experience, you would upload that logo, that image, and you would place it somewhere like on a shirt, or a poster would just be an image that you would upload, and they would have requirements and talk you through all of those steps. And and since I'm blowing through all these, I'll unpack any of these that interest you in particular, but I just want to zip through and give you a really fast overview of all of these. So open source and GitHub. If you are interested in or available to get into technology, you can get tons of stuff for free on open source and GitHub. So that's my account, github.com Fountain. I've got 3 projects that I've created in the past that I'll just show you what they look like real quick. These are not necessarily what you want to do, but if you have a technical savvy friend or you are a developer, then you could look at the work that I've done and perhaps co-opt it for your own purposes. So let me give you 3 quick demos. So this is You Choose. I created this about a year ago. It is an interactive experience for the phone. You call this number and it tells you a story, and you can more or less do a choose your own adventure story on the phone. So it'll read you the first scene of a story. At the end of it, it'll say, press 1 to climb the mountain, press 2 to go through the wooded forest. You press 1 and 2, and it takes you through it. I built this probably over the course of about 2 days, and it's deployed it's hosted on a service called Heroku, and it uses a Twilio API to send voice and text messages. And this code lives up on GitHub, and it is there to download. You can see everything that I wrote in this code, and you could use it. It's however you want. I actually created a storytelling platform for it. So it's a CMS, so I can actually create a new story, create a new scene, upload an audio file to that scene, hit save, and build a story dynamically on the fly. So it actually, this particular platform doesn't even need to be coded. I won't show you how that works because it would take us a little too long, and we've got less time. We are already, okay, yeah, we're halfway through already, so I want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers. But if somebody's interested in learning more about this, bring it back up, and I will more than happy to talk about it. This is crazyandsexy.com. So I actually built this 2 weeks ago at a hackathon for the comedy hackathon, and I like text messaging because it's easy and it's knowable and anybody can use it. I can tell somebody about it and they can do it on their phone. This simulates the experience of dating a very hot but chemically unstable girl. This is obviously like aimed towards males a little bit more, but this was part of a comedy hackathon, so it's not necessarily meant per se to be family friendly, but if you like the idea of having a crazy girlfriend who's very hot but also texts you throughout the day saying like, I can't keep doing this, or my friends say I could do better than you, that is in for you, and you can send her a text message and she will respond and talk to you just like a crazy girlfriend would. This is another project that's really more in beta. I haven't officially launched it. You can sign up for it if you like. This is called SmoochBot. These are all just little exercises that I put together as things. So this is a romantic email reminder service. and you sign up for it, and for weekly or monthly updates, and it just gives you ideas of how to keep your relationship fresh. And so these are all my ideas, right? But this code is up online. So as a creator, you can look at this and say, oh, wait, he created something that sends an email to somebody weekly or monthly, and it has a little content management system. If I had a content management system that people could just sign up for and send them weekly or monthly emails, I would use it to tell this story. So if you are interested as a creator and you as a developer or want to bring on other developers, you can do some of the research ahead of time and say, oh, I heard about this thing, and I know it's available for us to have the code. So you would just need to know, like, what is this coding language, and then can I find a developer to work in this, and then we can maybe have this thing done in a quarter the time that it would normally take us if we wanted to build it from scratch. So those are just some quick examples of some stuff that I've built, and those are very affordable. Those are very free. It costs, when you send a crazy girlfriend a text message and she texts you back, that cost me 2 cents. So maybe that doesn't scale for you for 500,000 users, but if you anticipate that your audience is only going to be like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people, then that's a very reasonable budget to work with for building your experiences. Back to the magic of Keynote. Great. Free tools, right? So Google Drive or Google Docs, as it was formerly known, absolutely free, a terrific collaborative tool. If for some reason you don't know about this, do yourself a favor and sign up for a Google account and start using it. Things like collaborating with another writer, which in Transmedia experiences you'll absolutely have to do at a certain point. You'll need tools that allow you to communicate quickly. If you have that situation where it's hard to get together with your other collaborator, imagine when you're collaborating with 6 other people and you're trying to find that time of the day for you all to get together and have a meeting. It's not going to happen. So for example, you can share docs or spreadsheets and other wikis with each other. Wikis, there are free wikis out there for documenting your story world. Basecamp is a professional tool. It's very affordable. It's $20 a month that a lot of people use. There's also Atlassian.com, which is a whole product, especially includes things like bug tracking software and more technical things if you're in a collaborative environment where you need to track issues. There are tweet schedulers like Hootsuite, TweetDeck, and Seismic that are absolutely that have free levels that you can use to schedule these things, and other tools like that. Boom. And then if you're not a professional but you want to venture into the world of professionals but don't want to spend whatever, couple $100 on Photoshop, there are free open source software for audio editing. There's Audacity for photo editing. There is GIMP for vector illustration. There is Inkscape for 3D modeling. There is Blender. So for those of you who are like, I don't know if I can do this, and I don't think I can justify spending $500 on a piece of software to figure out if this is something that I'm interested in doing over the weekend. These are free softwares that have huge amounts of tutorial support and communities around them that you can download tonight and start messing around with and start building stuff or creating or building. Or, worst case scenario, if you just want to be a producer and you don't know how long these things take, and you want to ask somebody like, well, I just want them to retouch 20 photos, I don't think that would take very long. As a producer, you can download this software and try to figure out how long it takes and get a better appreciation of the time commitments that collaborators are working on. So cheap labor, that's one of the hardest parts, right, of putting these types of things together, finding collaborators who are great and that you want to work with and that want to work with you. So how do you do it? So as part of these design experiences, we need writers, designers, performers, videographers, developers, publicity, project managers, producers, community managers. Sometimes we are all of these things, right? Sometimes we are half of these things and the other person is the other half. But these can be the types of roles that you need to produce transmedia experiences. And if you're a transmedia producer for the first time, actually sort of bringing a whole team like this online can be extremely onerous. And I would challenge you to not try to do that. I would challenge you to try to keep something small first and do something achievable that you can build, and then put together and sort of grow that team as you can per experience. And let's see. So how do you find them? So there's meetups around every city, and no matter where you are, you can sign up for meetup.com and go to those particular ones of the areas that you're lacking. If somebody says you need a JavaScript developer, you can go to JavaScript Meetup and find and talk to people and at least tell them what you've got going on. Or the same thing, whether it's designers or developers or videographers. And mailing lists, they almost all have mailing lists that you can opt into and ask questions. And depending on the nature of that community, they can be very friendly and opening and educating and inviting, or they can be very cold and then maybe just don't, you drop off that email list. And then Twitter and Tumblr, you can start following people who are professionals in the environments and the industries and the verticals that you are interested in tracking. All right, so professional portfolios. These are ways that you can find people or see other people's work to get exposure to what you are looking for to have. So Behance.net, Dribble.com, Coroflot, these are all portfolio sites where creative professionals put up their work. Developers can be found on GitHub and at hackathons. Certain types of hackathons are weekend type environments where you can come together, and sometimes they just need creative people, or sometimes it's developers looking for interesting business people to collaborate with or compelling new projects. Never underestimate the developer who has a steady job but is looking for something fun and interesting to do on the side. And for a lot of them, storytelling or not-for-profit work that uses transmedia development is a very compelling excuse or reason for them to spend more time on a new program. So, all right. How to attract that talent. Plan ahead and be organized. If there's anything that I can encourage you to do, it's to know as much about your project as you can beforehand before trying to bring somebody else on board. If you don't know everything there is to know, then you need to bring on a collaborator and just make that clear at the top to say, hey, I don't know technologically what I need to do, or I'm a tech person and I don't know how I think this involves having performers and videos, but I have no idea like what that timeline or those schedules are like to create real video for those things. In that situation, if you don't know the full extent, then you need to bring on a collaborator and offer them something interesting, and just be upfront about that time commitment. And the worst thing that you can do is get like 3/4 of a way through a project and to have the person that you're collaborating with say, you know what, I just didn't realize it was going to be this much work, and I just don't think I can keep doing it. And then you're sort of left in the lurch. It's always better to overestimate and have somebody agree to that overestimated amount of time than to underestimate and have somebody that you're collaborating with feel trapped into a project that they're not interested in. And when you're dealing with very low budgets, these are the first types of projects that you'll be working on. They'll just be like, well, how much time can we work on this during the week and still do this other thing that we do? And that might be 5 hours a week, or it might even be less. And so it's just good to have an open conversation about that. And then another tool that I would say as a producer, if you really want to get good at producing, turn your passes and your no's into new opportunities. So if you reach out to someone and who's, let's say you're looking for a choreographer for this thing that you're working on, and they say, you know, this is interesting, but I don't have the time to do it, and I'm sorry, I have to pass. You can make one of two choices. You can say, great, thank you, or you can say, that's great. Can you recommend somebody who you think might be excited about this program and would be a good person for me to talk to? So turn all of your dead ends into new opportunities. If that person says, no, I can't help you do this, then say, great, thank you so much for responding to my email. By the way, I am not a very experienced developer, and I have these estimates and budgets that I think it would take for me to do this project. Would you mind reviewing it and letting me know if that's a realistic estimate in your experience of getting this project done? And most people who have said no to you will say, sure, yeah, that'll take me about an hour or an hour and a half to review what you're talking about, and yeah, I'll do that. And then they get back to you, and now you say, great, I had this other developer, when you're reaching out to your next developers or whoever that collaborator is, whether that's a video producer, say, listen, I've already worked with this person, they've reviewed my budget, and they think it's pretty accurate. And so whoever that person is, it already brings credence to your project to say, well, if so-and-so's already looked at it and sort of vetted this and shown that this is the X amount of work, you're starting to show sort of synergy and interest in your project. Whether that you feel like that's disingenuous or not, the fact that somebody would even say yes to help you or to take a look at it is people saying, like, this is interesting enough for me to try to help you out. So all of those signs to help get things off the ground. For all of these projects, it'll be about building momentum in the beginning, and that's just one technique as a producer. And if you truly want to be a great transmedia producer, it's about 97 other techniques as well that you'll learn along the way to sort of get these things going and moving, especially at this level of production. If you say, hey, we've got this terrific budget and a great project, you will not have to call people to tell them, hey, come work on this. They'll just have to know that it exists, and they will find you. But when you're trying to sell or do something very cheaply, you will need to convince them. When all else fails, pursue an alternative platform. Just or offer future revenue for your collaborators if that's something that you think it might result in, or learn to do it yourself. Thanks. My name is Brian Fountain. There's my details. Thank you so much. We're going to open it up to questions and answers. We have approximately 15 minutes or less. So if anybody would like to ask something, let me know. Yeah. So that was a yes, there in the back. Right, so free wikis is probably one of the more easy ways to do it. The first approach that you'll probably do when you're just in the first process is maybe some Google Docs. You'll just create a couple of docs, 5 or 6, and then once you start getting up around more than 12 docs, then you probably want to start organizing things into a more integrated system. But Google Docs is absolutely free, and Google Drive, you can actually just create a folder on your computer and share that entire folder with your team so that anything that goes in it can be there. And the formatting allowed is pretty robust. And then once you started getting to the sense of like, okay, well, we're tracking 20 characters, and all these characters have details, and all of them have schedules, then it's starting to become a real management issue. You can start using things like Wikipedia and giving each one of those characters their own page, their own timeline, and those details. And when you start getting into more interactive scheduling, there are some solutions, things like check out Transmedia Storyteller's Conductor platform. It's still in beta. It's not actually open now. But they seek to do things like scheduling whole interactions and YouTubes and letting posts go online. And you can obviously schedule posts from WordPress and things like that. If you want them to be triggered dynamically, it starts to get into a slightly different territory, and you'll need a developer to do that. But I would just say the simplest way is Google Docs and wikis. Yep. Next question. Oh. More, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how to approach programming in Twilio as a kind of new to that space?
Yeah, so Twilio uses what's called an API, and that means that they have a server that lives out on the internet, and it looks for messages from your server. So if you were going to design an experience on that platform, you would sign up for an account on Twilio, you would buy a number from them, which costs $1 a month, and they would tell you in your account, where do you want me to point on the internet the calls that come into this number? And you would say, here's a URL, and that's your server that you have living online somewhere. Here's the URL, I want it to go here. And when a call comes into that number or a text comes into that number, it goes to where you told it on the internet, and it gives it some information, and all that information is documented. So for example, when that call comes in, it's going to tell your server, I'm getting a text message from this phone number with this message and some other metadata that goes along with that. And you'll have a system on the other side, and that can be built in any language. So that could be PHP or Ruby or Python or any of these major programming languages or Java. And it will it will take that information and then do it what you tell it to do with it. That might be, okay, if it comes from this person's number with this message, then respond back with this message. And you can either give it a message back, or you can save that message and schedule it on your server to go back some other time and send it back through their API as well. And an API just stands for Application Protocol Interface. It's just a technical term that just means this is the way you want to talk to this computer. We've documented it, and this is the way you need to do it if you want to send stuff over the way. Is any more information about that, or is that useful?
Yeah, that's good. So with your server, do you always have to create your own custom programming with that, or are there any libraries out there already?
It depends. So for the very simplest version of it, you can actually just create a document. So if I just wanted to create a phone number, for example, that somebody called it and it just said a message and that's all it did, I could do that in about 5 minutes. I would just I would buy the number, I would save a file that's in a particular format. It's called XML, and it's just a real simple descriptive way to say this is what the information will look like, and put that up. And that would be absolutely no dynamic server or coding. It would just need to live on the internet, and I would have to tell this where to live. If you have a situation where you need logic, so that's like, okay, if somebody calls me after 4, or if this is the 9th time that this person has called me, or if this person has called me but not texted me yet, I need you to do these things. Then you have to you're getting into a more different sort of logical situation, and you'll need to build something that lives on the internet. Those can still be very free and affordable. So for example, this you choose. Is all voice, and you choose. There's really no outward interface for the user. It's just all call based. But what happens is that there's on my server there's an API that listens for these phone numbers, and then it has what I just call a router, and it looks for that person coming in, and it says, oh, I'm getting a call from that number. Last time they called me, I was telling them this story in this scene, so I'll put them back into that story so that if your call gets disconnected. And each time you're navigating through my story, you know, you'll be flowing. I update where you are in that story so that I can track where you are, so that anytime you call back, you can continue and pick up the story. Right now, this is just a demo. I have like a demo story up there that's very quick. But yeah, next question. Any other questions? Anything in the back? Yes.
What do you think of collaborative storytelling platforms like Storify?
I think they're great. I think that they're a really simple way to get a sense of an experience that is quite ethereal, right? Something that's not collected and somewhat procedural to sort of put together a sense of what people were experiencing at the time. You know, and it's maybe not the best tool for you controlling the story, but I do think it's very useful, and I'd like to kind of see where it's going to go, because it's still obviously pretty new platform and technology. Any other questions? Yes.
I really thought all of your projects were designed really well.
Oh, thank you.
Visually, and you're a designer, right?
Yes, I'm a graphic designer as well.
That's the hardest thing that I find personally. I feel like figuring out how to make a website, not that hard. Figuring out how to make a movie, not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring out how to do your own design is really hard. And after I've worked with designers professionally a lot, but when you're DIYing it, being able to find someone who can do amazing or great looking design is really, really tough.
It is hard. So, you know, this is what I'll encourage you to do is, you know, Gretzky had this quote, it's like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? So it doesn't cost you anything to send someone an email, a very professional email asking them, hey, I found your work on dribble.com, or I've seen illustrators on istockphoto.com that I liked their work and their style, and I just found them offline for another project that I was working on, and reached out to them and said, this is a project that I'm working on, these are my budgets, are these interesting to you? And what's great about these portfolio sites is a lot of times when we're collaborating with people, there's this, hey, what's it going to look like? And then they show you, and you're like, I don't know if that's what I was thinking, and I'm not experienced enough to communicate to you what it was that I had in my head. And now it's awkward between us because you put your heart and soul into it, and you are passionate about this thing, and it's not the vision that I had. And so I have to make this choice of, do I want to give up what I was thinking for this project and just allow you to do that? Or can I be somehow, you're a designer with 10 years experience, am I going to somehow get the magic words to be able to describe to you, what it is over email that I'm thinking for this project? It's very, very hard. So some of the first ones that I would encourage you to do is work with people that have a lot out there online and that can show you at least something that's really close to what you kind of were hoping to build or to make, especially in the world of design and illustration. It's such a peculiar of a world. And then you can say, hey, I really love this brush sort of stroke style that you do as an illustrator. I'm wondering, like, what would happen if we did this in my post-apocalyptic zombie poet society Transmedia experience due 2016. It's not happening. But so I would say do that, and then if they say no, then they said no, and keep asking, but just keep saying very clearly communicating what it is that you want to do. Especially, like, just think it through. And if you don't have to write someone this large 1,000-letter email, but if you write a very clear email that just says, this is what we're trying to make, this is what I think the tone and the style is, and these are the timetables, and I want to know if you're interested, then yeah. Then the only worst they can say is no, and you'll say thank you, and that'll be an email introduction, and maybe they'll check you out, or they'll see projects, or afterwards you can say, hey, we ended up doing this. I just wanted you to see where it went, and thank you. Maybe one last question. Yes, go ahead. So you can't afford to pay them. You can't afford to pay them enough to make it more valuable than their day job, probably, right? So if you have that kind of budget, then we're not really talking about $8 a day. So if you're talking about maybe someone who's fresh out of college, who's very talented, then maybe there is a budget that you can offer to work with them. So the best thing to say is for yourself as a producer to say, this is what I've budgeted out, and realistically, if you don't have enough experience in transmedia producing or managing that process, then say, well, I'm going to reach out to one designer and say, are you interested? And if they pass, and say, did you think that was reasonable, and do that follow-up. And if you and just say, once they've passed, then you're in a different territory. They're not about hurting your feelings or that sort of thing. Thank you, I appreciate you taking the time to read my email. Just so I know, did you feel like that budgetary, I'm looking to do this with somebody, do you think I will be able to find somebody who's willing to work with that? And, a lot of times they'll say, you know what, honestly, yeah, I have a friend who is looking for something interesting to do, and I think that project would actually kind of suit them or fit or meet them, and then yeah, that is the best way to do. Like, your budget is, and I've designed this presentation very much to be like, we have almost no money. Like, we might, for like $1,000 or less type budget type things, where it's mostly people volunteering their time. The great thing about some of these things like developing and designing is that if it's a project that's exciting to the people, never underestimate the person toiling away in a terrible job, and the idea that you could offer them something that's compelling and interesting for them. And you want to work with those people. You want to find somebody who's like, oh, great, this is something that I would actually get me passionate about illustrating again, because right now what I'm doing is turning out these things for this company. Or a developer who's the same way, who's like, yeah, we're working on some sort of financial systems database, but the idea of me being able to build a site that dynamically pulls things from YouTube when people type in a keyword is really fun. I haven't done anything like that, since college, so that sounds cool. So I would say pay people what you can. But the truth is, you probably won't be able to compete with what they make as a professional if they are a professional. And there are more compelling things. I still work on things. The things that I mostly work on for not pay are my own projects. But once I've collaborated with enough people, when they call in favors for me, I say yes too, right? I owe lots of people favors, and they all, and if you're collaborating with the right people, they're all working on fun and interesting and compelling stuff, and it raises all boats too as well. Like everybody's getting terrific experience about producing stuff. So I would say, don't worry about the exact numbers, and if you feel like I need to know those numbers so that I can put it together, then reach out to a professional in that industry who would and just ask them, just review these numbers. That's all I need from you. I don't need you to come on board or that stuff, because you're not going to be able to realistically read in a book like what everybody is paying everybody for everything across your project. You just won't know that. All right, I think we're out of time. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of the conference.